Thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of Local Perspectives. I'm your host, Teddy Regis, and today's guest is personal trainer and founder of Go Headquarters, Brandon Rahe. Brandon earned his degree in exercise and sports science from the University of Florida and has been voted St. Augustine's best personal trainer for the last 7 years. He has over 15,000 hours of personal training experience. Needless to say, I wanted to pick his brain. I sat down with him to discuss his background and his thoughts on how athletic principles can be applied when we face unexpected challenges in everyday life. We also went back and forth about why we love the St. Augustine community and had our share of laughs. Enjoy. Brandon Rahe, thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you for opening up your beautiful gym for us to have this conversation.
Heck yeah.
Sit down and have this chat. So where did you grow up, Brandon?
Southwest Florida, a little town called Bonita Springs, so Gulf Coast, similar to St. Augustine, but less waves and far more people.
Gotcha. So how did St. Augustine end up on your radar?
I went to University of Florida in Gainesville. Meanwhile, I had friends come to Flagler College. So 90 minutes apart, I would come visit them here, and that's how I first met St. Augustine. And they would come to Gainesville and catch a football game in the swamp. And that's how I came to know it. Fell in love with it just on those few trips.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely an easy city to fall in love with.
Yeah.
When did you first know you wanted to get into personal training and fitness as a career?
Yeah. Always played sports, was always competitive in all sorts of athletics as a kid. The key to this journey for me, though, for sure, was a quad injury playing soccer my senior year of high school. Up until that point, my strength training was from the head football coach, which was nonsense looking back. Everything was terrible. When I hurt my quad, I then had to deal with the athletic trainer at the high school. And he took me through a leg workout, which was so amazing. I was so sore for days. I could barely walk. It was awesome. And I knew there was a ton of value to what he knew. And in my mind, I was like, I've got to know everything that guy knows, because he knows something way above and beyond what everything else, what anyone else had known up until that point. And that set the stage for really learning how to properly do athletic training. And
nice.
That took me to UF, and they had a perfect track for that, and I stayed on track, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. We're glad you did.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so senior year of high school.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny how an injury can turn into something positive in a weird way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So he was one of your fitness mentors, that athletic trainer. Have there been any other figures that you think of looking back that spurred you on?
Sure. And that's evolved over time, of course. I remember one of my early grade school PE teachers, she was a triathlete. And at the time, I barely even knew what that was, but I know she was just always putting in miles, and she was really athletic. And I remember her being a PE coach that I could actually respect in a sense, even at a young age, because later on, PE coaches were maybe a little heavy set, not very athletic themselves, things like that. And then on a more vague realm, celebrity trainers or certain people in the industry that were making waves with certain things, functional training and stuff. I was like, oh man, that's someone that I want to follow, and that's still evolving today. There are some people that I reference for good concepts and theories. Yeah.
Yeah, this space is definitely full of really inspiring people. Yeah, with some interesting ideas.
Definitely.
So you come to St. Augustine and you open this business, you start this gym. What obstacles did you face in opening up your own facility?
That can be a long list.
Yeah.
The initial issues, so when I first came, I was an intern for a semester. That was finishing my last semester of school. Immediately closed that, and by the end of that semester, I already had basically a full-time clientele. So my business...
Awesome.
My business was there. I'd already done the work to create a full-time clientele. Boom, perfect. Now how do I segue that? My internship is over, and so now I had job offers to work for someone, and basically immediately turned that stuff down and knew that I needed to just be my own entity and my own man and do that. And so the learning for business began. So there were the learning curve was an obstacle in itself. I knew nothing about business. I had no idea, and I had to reach out for help. Hey, establish an LLC, and here are the protections you need in place, and so on and so forth. And then the gym I was at, even though that was up and running and good, I couldn't grow in the functional training capacity that I wanted to. They didn't have the equipment that I needed. I was limited on space. I wanted like functional floor space. And so just had to continue to branch out and look to other means. And so ended up opening a small studio, only 1,500 square feet. That was back in 2007, so that I could train the way that I wanted to. Right. And it's just been a slow evolution since then. Once the bigger space, this space we're in now, became open, I had to jump on it. And then things like permitting.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
With the county slowed me way down. I mean, it took almost a year to get all of the official stuff going just to open the space, as silly as that sounds. That's it. I guess those are some of the big obstacles: space, training style conflicts, and official government stuff.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting just to hear people's experience on marrying their passion or their creative outlet, what they're into, versus the practical and the business side of it, and how to make those two things come together. I think a lot of us take it for granted, all that goes into that part of it too. So something that I think about a lot that you've talked about on your podcast is a concept you've discussed with other coaches, mental toughness. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that. We come in for a session and, there are days when we're not maybe feeling 100% and we're tired, we're sore. So how does mental toughness come into play, aside from physical prowess, when you maybe are tempted not to give 100%?
Okay, so interesting the way you phrase that, right? So mental toughness, you're bringing it, you're zooming in into a moment of you're uncomfortable, you're in pain, you don't want to push through that moment. So we're pretty isolated, right? We're rowing 500 meters as hard as you can, and you're 300 meters in and you're like, I don't have it. But hopefully some maybe external factors kick in, right? Someone starts cheering you on, you hear your name, come on Ted, the music's pumping, the athletes next to you are going. So you're trying to be mentally tough in that moment, okay? For me, that's a little more like pain management. You're willing to go through a painful moment, okay? But that moment is fleeting, it's over, and when your row is done, you're gonna recover, you're gonna be fine a minute later, and you kind of know that. So that's one element of mental toughness, and that a lot of factors go into that moment. We're all gonna have those moments where we struggle in the moment. So I like to zoom out on mental toughness in a more disciplinarian sense. So if I had to pick a word for mental toughness, it would be discipline. So you just had a great workout, you leave, now what? Are we gonna eat the right meal? Are we gonna go to bed in time? Are we gonna minimize our screen time? Are we gonna get up tomorrow and repeat it the way that we should? Or are we gonna stay up a little too late, we got something to go on the way home, didn't prepare our food, like all those little things that most people lack the discipline to do? That's mental toughness for me, on a zoomed out level.
Absolutely.
On a more broad scope, right? And that's the stuff that's just never ending. It's 24/7, all the little choices that add up to a lifestyle. Like a lot of us, I mean, I can push people a little beyond what they're ready for psychologically in one moment because of the environment we've built, and because of we're setting you up for success in that moment when you're gonna struggle. Hey, all you gotta do is show up, right? We'll get you through the rest. Right. But it's once you walk out the door here, I think that's where a lot of our mental toughness begins. And that's hard for me to coach. I can't hold your hand out there all day, right? So.
Very well said. I really, I think that makes a lot of sense, that there's so much more to it than just the session that you're here. But if you kind of get the entire puzzle together, and you'll really see even more benefits that way. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel in the gym determination to perform athletically can translate into everyday life? Kind of expounds a little bit on what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, there's a lot of carryover there. That's an interesting topic. I feel unprepared to answer that. Good topic. So I think that comes down to repetition, right? So if in our daily life we are not being challenged mentally, emotionally, physically, except just every now and then something goes wrong at work, at home, whatever, something disrupts our normal flow, we're not really prepared for that. But in here, I'm going to test you in some way, shape, or form every time I see you. I want 5 more pounds on the bar. I want you to shave 2 seconds off that 500-meter row we discussed earlier. At the end of the workout, hey, surprise, 400-meter run. You weren't mentally prepared for it. It wasn't on the screen, but now I'm asking for something more than you had prepared for.
I'm so glad you said that about the 400-meter run.
Right? That maybe rings a right? A little recall there.
Yeah.
You thought you had it all figured out coming in the door. No, you didn't. So I think the more we practice that, we're going to get our 10,000 reps in of moments of determination in here, moments of challenge in here. So then that comes up at work, that comes up at home. It's just another rep. It's just, okay, take a deep breath, and what's the next thing to do, right? So repetition in challenges, I think is pretty universal.
Yeah.
And this process gets emotional, right? We can get a little upset when things aren't going our way, and like, how do we handle that? Do we walk out? No, hopefully not. Hopefully we grin and bear it and focus on something we can control.
Right.
Our breathing and just what's that next step?
Yeah, I think it's nice to be able to see like the real world application, the bigger picture. You know, fitness is not just about physical results, but yeah, there are so many areas in life where it can help with other things that come up.
Yeah, and I love when, one of my favorite moments on that topic is somebody, there are a million instances of this, but let's say somebody's trying to pull a heavy deadlift and like they go for it and they don't get it, and it just, the bar's still on the ground, you know? And then like I'll witness that as a coach, come over, hey, here's what I want you to do. Like shake it off real quick, reset, right? Stomp your feet, whatever. Here's what I want you to do, like big breath, be aggressive, hard pull, and like I can see the gears turning, right? I'm like, hey, we just had a failure. We just had an L, like, and that's theirs. But we're gonna turn that L into a W. We're gonna win this moment. We're not gonna walk away defeated and shut it down. And then they reattack the bar. They do everything I'm saying. They've had this little pep moment of just psych yourself up to it, and then they pull it and they land it. Boom! Like total victory in that moment. And so, in life, when that happens, a little failure moment, like they'll maybe take another stab at it now, not just say, that didn't work and walk away. Like they know that you can have a second shot at things and make it happen.
Right,
you know?
Totally.
So I like that.
And it helps to have a coach.
Heck yeah.
Totally helps.
And we need those in life too.
Someone in your corner, yeah. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that about the 400-meter run. There was a time when, probably a few weeks ago, we were doing a Tabata. It was at the end of the hour. Mentally, we were probably thinking that this was going to be it. The hour's over. We're going to rest after this. But right as it ended, you were like, get out, 400-meter run. And I didn't have time to really think about it. And I just went and I pushed myself. And I had one of the better runs that I've had. And I remember driving home and feeling this weightlessness and just this, euphoria, probably all the dopamine and endorphins doing their thing. So is that something that you still experience? Do you find that diminishes over time, or is it something that you still notice after a good workout?
Yeah, interesting topic. I think that comes down to tolerance, just like anything. Drugs, alcohol, sugar, whatever, we build up a tolerance to these things. So I think at first, to the untrained athlete, they're maybe gonna really notice that. They're gonna notice when those endorphins really kind of take over and there's that little euphoric, maybe key moment of transition. They're like, whoa, like, holy cow, I feel awesome. And it seems like a magnified response. So I think my response is a little diluted at this point, but yes, it absolutely still happens. Now, if I took 4 weeks off of exercise and lost that feeling for those 4 weeks and didn't have it, and then jumped back in and did a great workout, I think I would immediately realize how awesome that is again. So I think I'm a little desensitized, but it's definitely still there.
That makes sense.
There are some days that I don't feel it because was doing something slow and just kind of doing weight training, and I maybe didn't get my heart rate elevated. I didn't get my respiration up as much as I maybe should have that day. And so, okay, it didn't happen that day, but then the next day it will.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let's go. I'm warm, loose. Why not do a 400-meter run right now?
And I like that you weren't mentally prepared, right? You had already, your description was awesome because I know that's what happens.
Yeah.
I do it myself.
Yeah.
You were like, the class is almost over. This has got to be the last thing. You started to like cash out mentally, right? You're checking out. So is the intensity higher? You start thinking, oh, this is the last 20 seconds. Okay, cool. I'll leave it all on this set maybe. But there's a little more in the tank.
Yeah.
And I want to check that every now and then. Is that, hey, look, you thought that was everything you had, but it wasn't. There's always a little bit more, and I want to test that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Because like that's how life works. Life throws curveballs at you.
Heck
You're
yeah.
not always gonna.
Right.
It's not always gonna be the same routine.
Right.
Okay, I have a few more questions. Are there any figures you can point to that taught you to live in a space of being of service to others in your community? And I'm thinking specifically of Hurricane Matthew. Before the hurricane came through, you used to have Deuce, and you let the community know on social media that, hey, I'm going to be here. If you need anything, if there's anything I can do, I'm here, and I'm going to help out any way I can. And then after the storm passed, you made the gym available to people who might have needed a hot shower, electricity to charge their devices. So can you point to any figures in your life, maybe growing up or more recently, who taught you to put yourself in such a space, a position to be of service to your community?
Maybe not so much growing up, because I don't think I was aware as I am now of what community service can look like. I did a lot of, as a student, right, volunteer hours, doing all these things to gather hours to look good on a college application, sort of a thing. And that's maybe what I thought that was at the time. Now, as an adult, I see it much differently, and that the options are endless on how you can give back. There are definitely people in my life now that do a ton of community service, and I'm really envious of that. Maybe theirs is a little more financial, and I'm not in such a place that I can do it the way that they do it. But I absolutely realize that this community has given a lot to me, has made me successful, right? Without the community, I would be nowhere. I can't sit here and train myself all day long. So yeah, when I know that I am prepared for certain things, the hurricane's a great example. Like, I kind of live for that stuff. I'm waiting for the apocalypse all the time.
I got this image in my mind of you just, because that thing is so high up the ground, high up off the ground, that you were just like scooping people up
Sure.
out of the floodwaters. It's like a really good time to have that vehicle. I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, who else had such a rig to maybe deal with crazy floodwaters 5-6 feet deep and be able to transport people around or pull people? In my head going into that, I'm like, gosh, the way they were drumming it up was like, we're going to be house deep in water, and I'm going to be pulling people off the rooftops in this truck, and and I had all the gear with me, like fully ready. I mean, I was like axes and shovels and tow straps and gas cans, and I was ready for anything. But it obviously didn't turn into that at all. Thank goodness. And was just doing small little things around. So yeah, I definitely look up to people that do a lot of stuff for this community. And that's something that reminds me, when I deal with those people and I see their names on things and sponsorships and their involvement, I'm like, man, I need to do more. I don't do enough, and I don't know that I'll ever hit the level that I should. It's probably one of the things I need to work on more.
Well, I think I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure for a lot of others, I think it's appreciated. It's something that we can all look at, but I think it's pretty consistent, even with the check-ins for charity, the different causes in the area, everything like that. I think it's great. And that's one of the wonderful things about living in St. Augustine. There really is a strong mentality of camaraderie and, what can I do for you? Community comes together, and then disaster has a funny way of bringing out the best in people. So it's really nice to see that in the aftermath of the last couple of years, how we've had those kind of rapid fire active seasons.
Yeah, those storms really highlighted that. I felt, I in my life, I've never felt a bigger sense of community, regardless of where I've lived. I mean, I mean, I guess it just takes a natural disaster type of thing to really highlight that, and we definitely saw that for both storms. I mean, everyone was just offering up everything, like, hey, whatever you need, you know, like even filling sandbags for that second storm, because far more people did far more prep for that second one. So like the sandbag things, I mean, people were just sitting there, they had their sandbags filled already. People had helped them fill theirs, and so they stuck around for an extra hour helping whoever walked up with the shovel, just kind of a thing. And I loved seeing that, and just people were chatting it up to help out. You know, little things like that.
It goes a long way.
Awesome.
I had the same experience going to one of the local parks to pick up sandbags. There was a woman who, she said, you know, someone helped me out, like I'm going to help you fill up yours.
Heck yeah.
And it just kept on.
Pay it forward.
It was contagious. Yeah, it was really wonderful to see that.
Yep, it's great.
And so something that I make it a point to ask each guest, two St. Augustine related questions. We've touched on this a little bit. What do you love about calling St. Augustine home?
Hard to nail that down a little bit.
Feel free to, you know, it doesn't have to be
if I can elaborate. You know, when I first came here, it reminded me of my hometown, kind of a beach town, but my hometown obviously doesn't have the history that this place does. But it reminded me of that in just a much smaller scale. It just has this like quaint, homey feel to it. I mean, I love that within just a few miles you can go do the downtown historic thing, or you can hit the beach and go surf, like within just the same day, right? You can hit the surf in the morning and like go have brunch downtown and walk around, and like walking around downtown never gets old for me. How many times have we walked down St. George Street, right? Just to like people watch and take in the sights and go grab ice cream. Like that is just, I think that is really rad.
It never gets old. It's just like all these years later, it's still.
I still admire just like walking by the fort and the bayfront. It's like, man, this is different every single time, even though I've seen it 1,000 times. Just little things like that, man. The Nights of Lights, love that time of year. I mean, I walk downtown probably 3 or 4 nights a week just to walk around under the lights because I think it's cool. You know. I don't know if that answers your question, but I love that stuff.
It totally does. I think a lot of us feel the same way. You know, it just feels like you're on vacation. It feels like you're somewhere else. You can kind of pause and reset down there. There's definitely something very special about the historic district. And the beaches. And last question, your favorite mom and pop restaurant?
Ooh.
Again, if you feel like you need to give more than one answer, that is totally fair game.
Man, some of this might come, pegging me here. I mean, I love the Floridian.
Same. I'm a huge fan of the Floridian.
You know, and I know some of the things, I have close friends and clients and stuff that own local businesses that aren't necessarily like mom and pop's places. They're on the franchise side of things. But I do what I can to go in and be a consumer. You know what I'm saying? I love supporting local businesses, even if it's kind of a franchise. If it's locally owned, I still love that.
For sure,
Part of just being part of the community there.
Just like enrich our community,
Heck yeah. So that kind of stuff. But I love, you know, Stir It Up, Rita Works, all those things, man. Like I frequent those places. Mangoes. My list is going to start growing.
Have you done brunch at Cafe 11?
Yes, Cafe 11.
That's awesome. That brunch over there. I've had a chance to do it twice. It's such a treat.
Awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
I love the, I go back for French toast repeatedly.
They're like, have as much as you want. I'm like, I don't know, I feel weird going for seconds. Like, do it.
Oh man. Brunches are so dangerous for me. I can do some damage.
Go like Ron Swanson on the bacon.
It's bad. No restraint there on my part.
It's like, it's a Saturday, you know, it's like, you're allowed, it's a Saturday.
Okay, thanks for the pass. That's good.
Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was super cool, great conversation. Just a way to highlight the community, highlight people like you doing great things.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. This has been a great chat, and I appreciate you being a part of Go headquarters, of course.
Love being here.
All the stuff you do. You highlight the area so well, man, on social media. I love everything you're doing.
I appreciate it, man.
So, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Nailed it.
This is the handshake we got to nail. This one.
All the snaps.
This has been episode 2 of Local Perspectives with personal trainer and Go Headquarters founder, Brandon Rahe. For sponsorship inquiries, email thisancientcity@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time.